The massive space station hung in the void like a giant crystal flower. Its transparent walls showed the stars stretching out in all directions. Inside the main hall, beings from dozens of different worlds moved around in their finest clothing. The air buzzed with the sound of many languages and the soft music from floating speakers. Giwon Kim adjusted his black formal jacket and looked around the room. He had been to many diplomatic events before, but this one felt special. Today marked the first official trade agreement between Earth and the Altarian Federation. After 3 years of careful talks, humans and Altarians would finally work together. "Remember, Jiwon," said Ambassador Hyon Park, walking up beside him. "The Altarians value respect and proper behavior above all else. They are very formal people." Puan nodded and smiled. "Don't worry, sir. I know how to be polite." Hyan looked at his younger colleague with concern. Giwon was one of Earth's best diplomats, but he had a habit of being too casual. His friendly nature worked well with most alien species, but the Altarians were different. They followed strict rules about everything. "Just be careful with your words," Hyan said. "Their culture is very complex." Jiwon waved his hand dismissively. "I'll be fine. People are people, no matter what planet they come from." The two humans moved deeper into the crowd. Guan greeted several alien diplomats he knew from previous meetings. He shook hands with a tall Zentarian trade minister and shared a drink with the Corvan cultural secretary. Everyone seemed happy about the new alliance. Then he saw her. She stood near a window that looked out at the stars. Her skin had a soft blue color that seemed to glow in the light. Her hair was silver and moved like water when she turned her head. She wore a flowing white dress that made her look like she was floating. When she smiled at something, another diplomat said, Giwon felt his heart skip a beat. "Who is that?" he asked Hyan quietly. Hyan followed his gaze. "That is Lyra Moonwhisper. She is the Altarian cultural attach. Very intelligent and well-respected among her people." "She's beautiful," Jiwon said without thinking. "And completely off-limits," Hyan warned. "The Altarians don't date casually like humans do. Their courtship process is very serious and full of tradition." But Jiwon was already walking toward her. He'd always been confident around people, and something about Lyra drew him like a magnet. He smoothed his hair and put on his best smile. Lyra was talking with a group of other diplomats when Jiwon approached. She looked up as he came near, and her large purple eyes met his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Good evening, Jiwon," said, giving a small bow. "I don't think we've been introduced." "I'm Jiwon Kim from the Earth delegation." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She returned his bow with perfect grace. "I am Lyra Moonwhisper, cultural attach for the Altarian Federation." "It is an honor to meet you, Ambassador Kim." "The honor is all mine," Jiwon said, his smile growing wider. "I have to say, your brilliant mind shines like the stars themselves. The cultural exchange programs you designed are truly amazing." Other diplomats around them suddenly went quiet. Some of them stared at Giwon with surprise. Others looked at Lyra with something that might have been congratulations. Giwon didn't notice. He was too focused on the way Lyra's cheeks turned a deeper shade of blue. "You honor me with your words," Lyra said softly. Her voice carried a musical quality that made Jiwon want to hear more. "I have studied human culture as well. Your people's creativity is most impressive. Well, maybe you could teach me about Altarian culture sometime," Guan said, leaning slightly closer. "I'd love to learn from someone as knowledgeable as you. Perhaps over dinner? I hear the station's restaurant serves food from many worlds." Lyra's breath caught. She glanced at the other diplomats who were now whispering among themselves. When she looked back at Jiwon, her expression was serious, but warm. "Yes," she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "I accept your proposal with all my heart." Jiwon blinked. "Proposal? Oh, you mean my suggestion about dinner? Great. How about tomorrow evening?" "Tomorrow would be perfect," Lyra said. She seemed to glow brighter, if that was possible. "I will inform my family of this blessed arrangement." "Family?" Giwon looked confused. "It's just dinner." "Do Altarians always tell their families about their meal plans?" Lyra laughed, a sound like silver bells. "You humans are so charmingly modest." "Yes, My family will want to know about such an important step in my life." Before Juan could ask what she meant, a tall Altarian man approached them. He wore formal robes that marked him as a high-ranking official. His face showed surprise and something that looked like approval. "Lyra, my dear," the man said in accented English. "Did I hear correctly? Has this young human made the traditional first offering?" "Yes, Uncle Voss," Lyra said, her voice full of joy. "Ambassador Kim has spoken. The ancient words of beginning. Praised my mind as bright as the stars and offered to share knowledge and nourishment with me." Uncle Voss turned to Jiwan and bowed deeply. "Young ambassador, you honor our family with your formal declaration. I am Elder Voss, Starweaver, Lyra's grandfather. I welcome you into the sacred process." Jiwan bowed back, completely lost but trying to be polite. "Thank you, sir. I'm happy to meet you. The whole station will celebrate this news," Voss said. "It has been many cycles since an off-worlder followed our customs so perfectly. We must have studied our ways very carefully." "Actually, Juan started to say, but Lyra interrupted. "He's being modest again, grandfather." Grandfather Kim clearly understands the depth of what he has begun. Around them, more Altarians had gathered. They looked at Jiwan with new respect and congratulated Lyra with warm embraces. News of whatever had happened was spreading quickly through the crowd. Jiwan felt like he was missing something important. The conversation had taken a turn he didn't understand. What had started as simple flirting now felt much more serious. But when he looked at Lyra's happy face, he didn't want to spoil whatever joy he had accidentally created. "Well," he said with an uncertain smile, "I'm glad everyone is so excited about dinner." Lyra laughed again. "Oh, Jiwan, you truly are unlike anyone I have ever met. I cannot wait for tomorrow evening to begin our journey together." As the evening continued, Jiwan found himself surrounded by congratulating aliens and confused human colleagues. He had no idea what he had gotten himself into, but one thing was certain. His simple attempt at flirting had started. Something much bigger than he had planned. And despite his confusion, when Lyra smiled at him across the crowd, he felt his heart race in a way that had nothing to do with diplomatic protocol. The next morning, Juan woke up feeling excited about his dinner date with Lyra. He had dreamed about her silver hair and purple eyes all night. Something about her made him want to know everything about her world and her people. He chose his best casual clothes and headed to the station's main plaza. The shopping area was full of vendors from different planets selling strange fruits, glowing crystals, and beautiful artwork. Jiwan wanted to find something nice for Lyra, maybe some flowers or a small gift, at a vendor stall run by a friendly Corvan. He bought a set of rare earth orchids that had been specially grown to survive in space. The flowers were white with tiny blue spots that reminded him of stars. "These are for someone special?" asked the Corvan vendor, wrapping the flowers carefully. "Yes, a new friend," Jiwan said with a smile. "We are having dinner tonight." The vendor's face changed to surprise. "You are the human who made the sacred bond with the Altarian female? The whole station is talking about your brave declaration." Frowned. "Sacred bond? I just asked her to dinner." "Ah, you are humble," the vendor said, nodding with approval. "But buying the flowers of promise is a wise choice. In Altarian custom, white flowers with blue marks represent pure intentions and lasting commitment." Before Jiwan could ask what he meant, the vendor had finished wrapping the flowers and refused to take payment. "For such a blessed occasion, these are my gift to you both." As Jiwan walked through the station, more strange things happened. Altarians he had never met before bowed to him respectfully. Other aliens congratulated him on his engagement and wished him happiness. A group of young Altarian females giggled and whispered as he passed. Jiwan started to feel worried. What exactly had he gotten himself into? He found Dr. Mina Cho in the research library, reading through thick books about alien cultures. Akina was Earth's best expert on alien societies, and Jawan hoped she could explain what was happening. "Mina, I need your help," he said, sitting down next to her.
Something weird is going on with the Altarians.
Dr. Cho looked up from her book. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "What kind of weird?" Everyone keeps congratulating me and talking about sacred bonds and engagements, Jawan said. All I did was ask Lyra to dinner. Mina's eyebrows went up. Lyra Moon whisper, the cultural attach. Yes, do you know her? I know of her. She comes from one of the most important families on Alteria Prime. Mina closed her book and looked at Jiwan carefully. Tell me exactly what you said to her. Jiwan repeated his conversation with Lyra from the night before. As he spoke, Mina's face grew more and more concerned. Oh no, she said when he finished. Kiwan, I think you might have accidentally proposed marriage. What? Kiwan nearly shouted. Several aliens in the library turned to stare at him. He lowered his voice. That's impossible. I just complimented her and asked her to dinner. Human culture, yes, Mina said. But Alterians have very specific customs. Let me check something. She pulled out her tablet and started searching through files. After a few minutes, her face went pale. Guan, you're in trouble, according to this. Praising an Alterian woman's mind is brilliant like the stars is the traditional opening of a marriage proposal. Offering to share knowledge and food is the second part of the ceremony. When she said she accepted with all her heart, she was giving the formal acceptance. Jiwan felt like the floor had disappeared under his feet, but I didn't know. It was just normal flirting. I know that, and you know that. But the Alterians don't know that, Mina said. To them, you followed their ancient customs perfectly. They probably think you studied their culture for months to propose properly. This is a disaster, Jiwan said, putting his head in his hands. What am I going to do? I can't marry someone I just met. More importantly, what happens if you break an Alterian engagement? Mina said, typing quickly on her tablet. Let me research their marriage laws. While Mina searched for information, Jiwan tried to think of a way out of this mess. He liked Lyra, but marriage. That was completely crazy. They barely knew each other. But as he thought about her smile and the way her eyes lit up when she talked, he felt something strange in his chest. Maybe getting to know her better wouldn't be such a terrible thing. Here it is, Mina said, interrupting his thoughts. Breaking an Alterian engagement is considered a serious insult to the entire family. It can cause feuds that last for generations. In some cases, it's even considered an act of war. War, Guwan's voice cracked. Over a dinner invitation? To them, it wasn't a dinner invitation. It was a sacred promise. Mina looked at him with sympathy. Guwan, you need to tell Ambassador Park about this right away. Before Guwan could answer, his communication device beeped. A message appeared on the small screen. It was written in flowing Alterian script that he couldn't read. What does this say? He asked, showing it to Mina. Mina studied the text. It's from Lyra. She's inviting you to walk with her in the Biodome Gardens this afternoon. She wants to show you the sacred plants of her homeworld. That sounds nice, Juan said hopefully. Maybe I can explain the misunderstanding to her then. G1, listen to me, Mina said seriously. Walking in gardens and sharing knowledge about sacred plants is the third stage of Alterian courtship. If you go with her today, you'll be completing another part of the marriage ceremony. G1 stared at the message on his device. Every attempt to be friendly was apparently making things worse. But the thought of disappointing Lyra made him feel sick. What if I don't go? He asked. That would be like standing her up on your wedding day, Mina said. It would be a terrible insult, and if I do go, you'll be one step closer to an Alterian wedding. Guan sat in silence for several minutes. Round them, the library buzzed with quiet activity as researchers from many worlds studied their books and tablets. Finally, he stood up. I have to go meet with Ambassador Park. This is too big for me to handle alone. What about Lyra? Mina asked. She's expecting you this afternoon. Guan looked at the flowers he had bought, still wrapped in their special paper. I don't know. I really don't know. As he walked toward the diplomatic offices, Giwan's mind raced. How had a simple compliment turned into such a complicated situation? And why did the thought of seeing Lyra again make his heart beat faster, even though he knew he was walking deeper into trouble? Behind him, Mina continued reading about Alterian customs, hoping to find some way to help her friend. But the more she learned, the more worried she became. According to everything she could find, there was no easy way out of an Alterian engagement, and somewhere else on the station. Lyra was choosing her most beautiful dress for their afternoon walk, counting the hours until she could see Jiwan again. Ambassador Hyen Park sat behind his desk with his head in his hands. The ornate invitation lay open in front of him, its golden letters shining in the office light. The document was written in formal Altarian script, but the translation at the bottom made everything clear. "A wedding invitation," Hyen said quietly. "Your own wedding invitation, Jiwan?" Jiwan paced back and forth across the small office. He had been walking for 10 minutes, unable to sit still. The reality of his situation was finally hitting him. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Jiwan said for the 100th time. "I was just being friendly. I thought she was pretty and smart. How was I supposed to know that compliments were marriage proposals?" "The Altarians take their customs very seriously," Hyen said. "According to this invitation, the ceremony is planned for next week. They've already started preparing food for 300 guests." Dr. Mina Cho knocked on the office door and entered without waiting for an answer. She carried a thick tablet, full of research notes. "I've been studying Altarian marriage laws all night," she said, sitting down heavily in a chair. "The news isn't good. How bad is it?" Jiwan asked, finally stopping his pacing. "Breaking an engagement is considered one of the worst insults possible in their culture," Mina explained. "The rejected person loses honor, and their entire family is shamed. In the old days, it sometimes led to wars between clans." Hyen rubbed his temples. "And in modern times?" "They might cancel all trade agreements with Earth," Mina said. "The Altarian government could declare humans untrustworthy partners. We could lose access to their technology and their star systems." Juan felt sick. The trade agreement with the Altarians was supposed to bring new medicines and energy sources to Earth. Millions of people were counting on this partnership. "There has to be a way out," he said desperately. "What if I explained that it was all a mistake?" "That might make it worse," Mina said. "If they think you deliberately tricked Lyra, they'll see it as an attack on their entire culture." "So what are my choices?" Jiwan asked. Hyen stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the stars. "You can go through with the marriage to preserve the alliance, or you can confess the truth and hope they forgive the cultural misunderstanding." "Both options are terrible," Jiwan said. "There's a third choice," Mina said quietly. "You could run away, leave the station and never come back." "That's not really a choice," Jiwan said firmly. "I won't run away from my responsibilities." The three humans sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside the office, the space station continued its normal activities. Alien diplomats conducted meetings, trade negotiators worked on contracts. And somewhere in the cultural wing, Lyra was probably planning her wedding. "I need to see her," Jiwan said suddenly. "I need to talk to Lyra face to face." "It's not a good idea," Hyen warned. "Every meeting between you two makes the engagement more official in their eyes." "I don't care," Jiwan said. "She deserves to know the truth, whatever happens after that." Before anyone could stop him, Jiwan left the office and headed toward the cultural wing of the station. His heart was beating fast, but his mind was clear. He couldn't live with himself if he married Lyra under false pretenses. The cultural wing was decorated with artwork from dozens of different worlds. Holographic displays showed scenes from various planets, and soft music played from hidden speakers. It was designed to be a peaceful place where different species could learn about each other, G1 found. Lyra, in a small garden area surrounded by plants from her homeworld, she was sitting on a bench reading something on a tablet. When she saw him approaching, her face lit up with joy. "Gi-wan," she said, standing gracefully, "I was just reading about Earth marriage customs. Your traditions are so different from ours." She wore a flowing blue dress that matched her skin color perfectly. Her silver hair was arranged in an elaborate style with small crystals woven through it. She looked more beautiful than ever, and Gi-wan felt his resolve weaken. "Lyra, we need to talk," he said, his voice more serious than she had ever heard it. Her smile faded slightly. "Is something wrong? Are you having second thoughts about our union?" "That's just it," Ji-wan said, sitting down beside her on the bench. "I need to tell you something important about our ... union." Lyra set down her tablet and gave him her full attention. Her purple eyes were concerned but trusting. "The night we met," Ji-won began carefully, "when I spoke to you at the reception, ... Yes, when you made your beautiful proposal," Lyra said. Softly, I will never forget those words. Guan's heart broke a little at the happiness in her voice. "Lyra, I didn't know I was making a proposal. In human culture, what I said was just friendly conversation. I didn't know about your marriage customs." For a long moment, Lyra stared at him without speaking. The color drained from her blue cheeks, leaving them almost white. You ... you didn't know?" she whispered. "I'm so sorry," Ji-won said. I should have learned more about your culture before speaking to you. I thought you were amazing and I wanted to get to know you better." Lyra stood up abruptly and walked to the other side of the garden. She stood with her back to him, her shoulders shaking slightly. "So all of this," she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "The walks we planned, the dinners, the flower garden tours, none of it was real to you?" "The friendship was real," Gi-won said, standing and moving closer to her. "My interest in getting to know you was completely real. Just didn't understand what it meant in your culture. My family has already started planning the ceremony," Lyra said, still not turning around. "My grandfather sent word to our homeworld. Everyone knows about our engagement." "I know," Ji-won said, "and I know this will cause problems for you and your family. That's why I had to tell you the truth." Finally, Lyra turned to face him. Tears were running down her cheeks, but her expression was more sad than angry. "Do you have any feelings for me at all?" she asked. "Or was I just a diplomatic mistake you need to fix?" Gi-won looked into her eyes and realized that his answer to that question was the most important thing he would ever say. "I do have feelings for you," he admitted. "What makes this so complicated?" The Biodome Gardens were quiet at night. Most of the station's residents were asleep, but Ji-won couldn't rest. His conversation with Lyra earlier that day had left him feeling confused and guilty. After he told her the truth about the accidental proposal, she had asked for time to think. Ji-won walked along the winding paths between plants from 100 different worlds. The artificial moonlight cast strange shadows through the transparent dome above. He needed fresh air and space, too. Clear his head, as he rounded a corner near the Altarian flower section, he stopped suddenly. Lyra was there, moving in a slow, graceful dance among the silver trees from her homeworld. She wore a simple white dress that flowed around her like water as she moved. Her dance was unlike anything Gi-won had ever seen. Every movement told a story. Her arms reached toward the artificial stars like branches seeking sunlight. Her feet touched the ground so lightly she seemed to float. When she spun, her silver hair caught the moonlight and sparkled like stardust. Ji-won stood frozen, afraid to interrupt, but unable to look away. The dance was so beautiful, it made his chest ache. When the music from her small device ended, Lyra noticed him watching. For a moment, they just looked at each other across the garden. "I'm sorry," Gi-won said softly. "I didn't mean to disturb you. I couldn't sleep." "Neither could I," Lyra said. Her voice was sad, but not angry. "This is an old dance for my people. We perform it when we need to think about important decisions." "It was beautiful," Ji-won said, stepping closer. "I've never seen anything like it." "My grandmother taught it to me when I was very young," Lyra said. "She said the dance helps us listen to our hearts when our minds are confused." They sat together, on a bench surrounded by glowing flowers. The garden was peaceful, filled with the soft sounds of running water and night creatures from various worlds. "I owe you an apology," Lyra said after a while. "I was angry earlier, but I had time to think. You told me the truth even though it was difficult. That takes courage." "I should have learned about your customs before speaking to you," Ji-won said. "Ambassador Park warned me that Altarians value proper behavior, and I should have realized that different cultures express friendship differently," Lyra said. "I was so excited that someone seemed to understand our traditions that I didn't ask questions." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Above them, real stars shone through the dome's transparent walls. The view reminded them both of how vast the universe was and how strange it was that two people from different worlds had found each other. "Can I ask you something?" Ji-won said. Of course. What do you like when you're not being a diplomat? What do you do for fun? What are your dreams? Lyra smiled for the first time since their conversation earlier. You want to know who I am? Not just what my job is? Yes. I realized today that I've been so worried about the marriage customs that I haven't really gotten to know you as a person. Lyra's smile grew brighter. Well, I love old poetry from my homeworld. I collect books of ancient verses and read them when I'm homesick. I also write my own poems, though I'm not very good at it. I'd like to read them sometime, Ji-won said. What else? I want to write a book about cultural differences, Lyra said, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. Something that would help different species understand each other better. Too many friendships are lost because people don't know how to communicate across cultures. That's an amazing idea, Ji-won said. You could prevent situations like ours from happening to other people. What about you? Lyra asked. What is Ji-won Kim like when he's not being Ambassador Ji-won Kim? I love music, Ji-won said. I play guitar, though I'm not very good at it either. I collect songs from different planets and try to learn them. Music seems to be the one language that every species understands. That's wonderful, Lyra said. What else? I love learning about how different species solve problems, Ji-won said. Humans tend to be very direct and sometimes impatient, but other species have such interesting ways of thinking. I became a diplomat because I wanted to build bridges between worlds. Sounds like we both want to help people understand each other better, Lyra said. Yes, I think we do. They talked through the night about their families, their hopes, and their fears. Ji-won learned that Lyra was worried about living up to her famous family's reputation. Lyra discovered that Ji-won sometimes felt like he wasn't serious enough to be a good diplomat. As the artificial dawn began to lighten the sky, outside the dome, Guan realized something that surprised him. Despite everything that had happened, despite the confusion and the cultural mistakes, he genuinely enjoyed talking to Lyra. She was intelligent, funny, and kind. Her laugh made him happy, and her thoughtful questions challenged him to think. In new ways, Lyra, he said as they prepared to leave the garden, I need to ask you something important. Yes. If we had met under normal circumstances, if there had been no accidental proposal and no diplomatic crisis, would you have wanted to be my friend? Lyra considered the question carefully. Yes, she said finally. I think I would have. Sure. Different from anyone I've ever met. You make me laugh, and you ask questions that make me think. I like the way you see the world. I feel the same way about you, Ji-won admitted. You're brilliant and creative and beautiful. When you talk about your dreams, your whole face lights up. I could listen to you for hours. So what do we do now? Lyra asked. We're still engaged according to my people's customs. The wedding. Invitations have been sent. I don't know, Ji-won said honestly. But I do know one thing. Whatever happens, I don't regret meeting you. Even with all the confusion and problems, I'm glad we found each other. Lyra smiled, and for the first time in days it reached her eyes. I'm glad too. As they walked back toward the main part of the station, neither of them noticed the group of Altarian officials watching from the other side of the garden. Elder Voss Starweaver and his companions had arrived early for a scheduled meeting and had seen the two young people talking intimately in the garden. The human seems genuinely fond of our Lyra, one of the officials said quietly. Yes, Elder Voss said thoughtfully. But fondness is not the same as commitment. We must discover his true intentions before the ceremony. Unknown to Ji-won and Lyra, their peaceful night in the garden had been observed by people who would soon put their relationship to the ultimate test. The formal meeting room felt like a courtroom, Elder Voss. Starweaver sat at the head of a long table made of polished stone from the Altarian homeworld. Beside him sat General Kale Stormright, Lyra's father, whose military uniform was covered with medals and honors. Several other high-ranking Altarians filled the remaining seats. On the opposite side of the table, Gi-won sat next to Ambassador Hyeon Park and Dr. Mina Cho. The humans looked small and nervous compared to the imposing Altarian delegation. Ambassador Kim, Elder Voss began, his voice formal and cold. We have come to discuss your engagement to my granddaughter, Lyra Moonwhisper. Ji-won's palms were sweating, but he tried to keep his voice steady. Yes, sir. I wanted to speak with you about that. General Stormright leaned forward. He was a large man with silver hair and scars on his hands from old battles. Tell us about your knowledge of Alterian customs, young human. How long did you study our ways before you made your proposal? The question hit Juan like a punch, too. The stomach. This was the moment he had been dreading. He looked at Ambassador Park, who nodded slightly, encouraging him to tell the truth. I didn't study your customs at all, Juan said quietly. I didn't know I was making a proposal. The silence in the room was deafening. Several Alterian officials exchanged shocked looks. General Stormright's face darkened with anger. What do you mean? Elder Voss asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I spoke to Lyra at the reception, Giwan said, forcing himself to continue. I was just trying to be friendly. In human culture, compliments and dinner invitations are casual social interactions. I had no idea they were marriage proposals in your culture. You dare to tell us that you accidentally engaged yourself to my daughter? General Stormright stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. Do you think Alterian customs are a joke? No, sir, Guan said quickly. I have the greatest respect for your culture. That's why I'm telling you the truth, instead of going through with a marriage based on deception. Deception, repeated another Alterian official. So you admit that you deliberately misled our people? No, Juan said, his voice growing stronger. It was a mistake, not deception. I should have learned more about your customs before attending the reception, but I never intended to mislead anyone. Elder Voss studied Juan's face carefully. And what of the time you spent with Lyra after? The initial proposal? The walks? The conversations? The gift of flowers? Were those also accidents? I thought we were becoming friends, Juan said. I enjoyed talking with her. She's intelligent and kind, and I wanted to know her better. But I didn't realize that. Every friendly gesture was part of a wedding ceremony. Friends, General Stormright said the word like it tasted bad. My daughter is not some casual acquaintance for you to practice your social skills on. She comes from one of the most honored families on Alteria Prime. Her engagement to you was announced across our entire star system. Ambassador Park finally spoke up. General, we understand the seriousness of this situation. Ambassador Kim made an honest mistake, but he's trying to handle it honorably by telling you the truth. Honor? General Stormright laughed bitterly. Where is the honor in breaking a sacred engagement? Where is the honor in humiliating my daughter in front of our entire culture? Dr. Mina Cho cleared her throat nervously. If I may speak, I've been researching ways to resolve this situation that would preserve everyone's dignity. There is no resolution, said another Alterian official. The human has made a mockery of our most sacred traditions. This incident proves that humans cannot be trusted as diplomatic partners. Wait, Juan said, standing up suddenly. You're talking about canceling the trade agreement over this? Why not? General Stormright asked. If humans make promises they don't intend to keep, how can we trust them in business or politics? Giwan felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. The trade agreement wasn't just about politics. Earth needed Alterian medical technology. To cure diseases, millions of people were depending on this alliance. You're right to be angry with me, Giwan said. I made mistakes, and I take full responsibility for them. But please don't punish my entire planet for my ignorance. Your planet sent you as their representative, Elder Voss said. Your actions reflect on all humans. At that moment, the meeting room door opened. Lyra entered, wearing formal robes that marked her as a member of the Alterian Cultural Council. She looked pale but determined. Grandfather, father, may I speak? She asked formally. Lyra, you should not be here, General Stormright said. This is a matter for the council to decide. It is a matter that concerns my life and my honor, Lyra said firmly. I have the right to be heard. Elder Voss nodded slowly. Very well. What do you wish to say? Lyra looked directly at Jiwan, her purple eyes sad but not angry. Ambassador Kim told me the truth about the accidental proposal 3 days ago. He could have kept the secret and gone through with the marriage, but he chose honesty instead. That shows character. Shows that he never cared for you at all, General Stormright said angrily. You are worth more than being someone's diplomatic mistake. Yes, I am, Lyra said quietly. But I am also wise enough to recognize genuine kindness when I see it. Giwan may not have known our customs, but his interest in learning about my culture was real. His respect for me as a person was real. That doesn't change the fact that he has broken our engagement, Elder Voss said. Actually, Lyra said, taking a deep breath, he hasn't broken our engagement. I have. The room erupted in surprised voices. General Stormwright stared at his daughter in shock. What do you mean? He asked. Under Altarian law, either party can end an engagement if they believe it was made under false pretenses, Lyra said. Since Giwan didn't understand what he was agreeing to, the engagement was not valid from the beginning. I am formally releasing him from any obligation to marry me. Lyra, Giwan said softly, you don't have to do that. I'll face whatever consequences my mistakes have caused. This is my choice, Lyra said, turning to face him. You told me the truth, even though it was difficult. Now I'm choosing to handle this situation in a way that honors both of our cultures. Elder Voss sat back in his chair looking thoughtful. If you release him from the engagement, there is no dishonor to our family. The blame falls on cultural misunderstanding rather than deliberate insult. But the alliance, Dr. Mina Cho said. Will this affect the trade agreement? General Stormwright looked at his daughter with new respect. My daughter has shown wisdom and grace in handling this situation. If she believes the human acted with good intentions, then perhaps we can find a way forward. However, Elder Voss said, his voice stern, this incident must not happen again. Future diplomatic contacts between our peoples will require cultural education for all participants. Agreed, Ambassador Park said quickly. We'll establish cultural training programs immediately. As the meeting ended and the Altarians filed out of the room, Giwan found himself alone with Lyra for a moment. Thank you, he said quietly. You saved my career and possibly my planet's future. I told you, Lyra said with a small smile. Believe in doing what's right, even when it's difficult. Will I see you again before you leave the station? Chuan asked. Lyra's smile faded. I've requested a transfer to a research post on the Outer Rim. It will be easier for everyone if I'm not around to remind people of this incident. As she walked away, Jiwan felt like he was losing something precious. He had gained his freedom. But somehow it felt like the biggest mistake of his life. 3 days before his scheduled departure back to Earth, Giwan sat in his quarters, staring at a blank message screen. He had started writing to Lyra a dozen times, but every attempt sounded wrong. What could he say? Thank you for saving my career. Sorry I ruined your life. I miss talking to you. Dr. Mina Cho knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She looked excited about something. Giwan, I just heard that Lyra is leaving tomorrow for that research station, she said. Are you really going to let her go without talking to her? What's the point? Jiwan asked miserably. She's probably better off without me. Her enough trouble? Have you looked outside today? Mina asked, walking to his window. The Galactic Unity Festival starts tonight. Representatives from 50 worlds are here to celebrate cultural exchange and cooperation. So it's the perfect opportunity to make a grand gesture, Mina said. If you have feelings for her, now's the time to do something about it. Mina, she released me from the engagement to save both our cultures from embarrassment, Juwan said. She doesn't want anything to do with me. You sure about that? Mina asked. Because I've been watching her these past few days. She looks as miserable as you do. Before Jiwan could respond, Ambassador Park appeared in the doorway. We need to talk. I just received some interesting information from the Altarian delegation. What kind of information? Elder Voss told me that Lyra has been asking questions about human courtship customs, Ambassador Park said. Apparently she's been trying to understand how humans show romantic interest. She has. Guwan's heart began to beat faster, according to Elder Voss. She's particularly interested in the concept of dating and whether humans ever marry for love rather than family arrangements, Ambassador Park continued. Mina grinned. See? I told you she's interested in you. But she's leaving tomorrow, Guan said. And even if she does have feelings for me, her family would never approve of a relationship between us. Actually, Ambassador Park said slowly, Elder Voss mentioned something else. Said that if a human were to court an Altarian properly, with full knowledge of their customs and genuine respect for their culture, Such a union might be seen as a symbol of cooperation between our species. You suggesting that I double quotes, Ji-won started to say. I'm not suggesting anything, Ambassador Park said with a small smile. But the Unity Festival tonight features presentations from different cultures. If someone wanted to make a public statement about cross-cultural understanding, tonight would be the perfect time. After his colleagues left, Gi-won sat in his room, thinking. For the first time in days, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was a way to fix this situation after all. He spent the rest of the day in the station's cultural library, studying everything he could find about Altarian courtship customs. Then he found a group of young Altarian artists who were preparing a dance performance for the festival. Could you teach me the basic steps? He asked them. I want to show respect for your culture. The young Altarians were surprised but pleased. They spent hours teaching Ji-won the formal movements of the traditional courtship dance. His technique was clumsy compared to their graceful motions, but his determination impressed them. Why do you want to learn our dance? Asked one of the artists. Because I want to show someone that I'm willing to learn her language, even if it's difficult for me, Gi-won said. The Unity Festival took place in the station's main plaza, which had been decorated with art and music from dozens of different worlds. Beings of all species mingled together, sharing food and stories. The atmosphere was joyful and welcoming. Ji-won waited until the formal presentations began. Scientists, artists, and diplomats took turns speaking about cooperation between different cultures. When there was a pause between speakers, Gi-won walked onto the small stage. Good evening, he said, his voice carrying across the plaza through the sound system. My name is Ju-won Kim, and I represent Earth in these diplomatic talks. Conversations stopped as people turned to listen. In the crowd, Ju-won could see Lyra standing near the back, her expression surprised. 3 days ago, I made a terrible mistake. Gi-won continued in Altarian, speaking slowly to make sure he pronounced the words correctly. I accidentally proposed marriage to someone without understanding what I was doing. This mistake embarrassed her family and nearly damaged relations between our peoples. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some people looked shocked, others curious. But today I want to make a different kind of proposal, Ji-won said, switching back to English while Dr. Mina Cho translated for the non-English speakers. I want to propose that we can learn from our mistakes and grow stronger because of them. He stepped down from the stage and began to perform the Altarian courtship dance he had learned. His movements were awkward and imperfect, but everyone could see the effort he was putting into each gesture. I propose that love can exist between different species if we're willing to work to understand each other, Kwon said as he danced. I propose that making mistakes doesn't make us failures if we learn from them. As he reached the end of the dance, he looked directly at Lyra. I propose, with full knowledge of what I'm saying this time, that Lyra Moonwhisper is the most amazing person I have ever met, and I would be honored to learn about her culture, her dreams, and her heart for the rest of my life. The plaza was completely silent. Kwon stood in the center of the space, breathing hard from the dance, waiting for Lyra's response. Slowly, Lyra walked forward through the crowd. When she reached the center of the plaza, she began to speak in Korean, the language she had been secretly studying. Kim-won Kim, she said in accented but clear Korean. You have shown me that humans are capable of great growth and genuine love. You learned my language of dance to speak to my heart. In return, I learned your language of words to speak to yours. She moved closer to him, ignoring the hundreds of people watching them. I accept your proposal, she said, switching back to English so everyone could understand. Not because our cultures demand it, but because my heart demands it. The plaza erupted in cheers and applause. Beings from dozens of different worlds celebrated this moment of connection between two very different people. Elder Voss stepped forward from the crowd, his face showing pride rather than anger. Young human, you have shown respect for our ways while staying true to your own heart. This is how real understanding begins. General Stormright also approached, though he looked less certain than his father-in-law. You promise to honor my daughter and learn our customs properly? I promise to spend my life making her happy and building bridges between our peoples, Ji-won said. With her help, of course. Lyra laughed, the sound like silver bells in the night air. Of course. will learn together. 6 months later, their wedding took place on Earth in a beautiful ceremony that combined traditions from both cultures. Ambassador Park officiated the human portion, while Elder Voss performed the Altarian rituals. Dr. Mina Cho served as the official cultural consultant, making sure every detail honored both traditions. The wedding became famous throughout the galaxy as an example of successful cultural cooperation. Guan and Lyra wrote a book together about their experience, which became required reading in diplomatic schools across dozens of worlds. But more importantly, they had found something that transcended cultural differences and species boundaries. They had found love built on respect, understanding, and the willingness to keep learning about each other every day. And sometimes, late at night in their home on Earth, Lyra would dance the traditional steps from her homeworld while Jiwon played guitar music that combined melodies from both their planets. In those moments, they knew that the best things in life often come from the most unexpected beginnings. Their story became a legend among humans and Altarians alike. Proof that love really can conquer all obstacles, as long as both people are willing to meet each other halfway.